We all want 38.
No, don't do that.
Would you? All right.
Wait, that would make you psychobilly.
No. Okay. So here's a little thing that women have been saying about me, and that I heard from a little birdie.
Can we, by the way, make this a recurring bit?
What?
Here's the things that women have been saying about race.
This is a real thing.
Oh, okay.
No, don't try to deflect from this. This is a real thing that real women, you, have been saying about me.
Me?
Yes. A little birdie told me that you, during the other day when I was at therapy and you were at my neighbor's house.
What did I say to her?
That you...
Or him, or them.
You and her, although I'm not even sure I should refer to either of you as human beings... We're like, agreed that I'm rockabilly.
I don't think that is. No.
How would you take that?
This is what I think, Bryce. I think you could benefit from a little rockabilly in your style.
Oh, you think I'm not rockabilly enough?
Wait, so you agree you're rockabilly?
No.
So,
I think there's a dearth of rockabilly that you would like to see filled with rockabilly.
Can I tell you how we got there?
Yeah, tell me.
We were
tell
talking,
me the winding road that you took to get there.
No, because it was like an outfit thing. It was like, okay, I can see you with like maybe a looser pant that's a little cropped with, what is that? That kind of like 50s style camp collar.
What
shirt.
the fuck is a camp collar?
My man here knows. He laughing.
Like Kramer.
I don't know what shirt he wears. The big 70s
colors. I can see that. And you got the glasses and you got the hair.
The glasses?
No, it's not a rockabilly like Zoot Suit Riot, though I will defend that vibe. But like, I could see you with the little Elvis swagger is what I'm saying.
You think that you could see me with Elvis swagger?
Look, I don't think you should be saying or acknowledging any of this. I'm just saying I could see the vibe and I would rock with it.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Come here. Jeffrey Epstein.
I can't believe she just blew up my spot like that.
She blew the shit out of your spot
what
like
else
that.
did she tell you?
She said she also was like, that's crazy that you and her got together with a lot more women and were like, Brace is handsome.
Well,
because I'm like, that's like
that's not cool at all.
Not how I think of myself. I'm very humble.
Well, I'm Liz.
My name.
What are you trying to do?
My name is
I get it.
C. Hain Wallet. Get it?
What? No.
C. Period.
A
Hain.
wallet chain.
Well, that's the opposite order of the words.
I feel like you could see a like Essence, like there's definitely like a Jacquemus Essence wallet chain on sale right now.
A what?
There we go.
And of course,
my
we're
man
joined.
laughing because he know.
We're joined by producer Young Chomsky, and we're here at Sun Studios. Now, what we've got to get, fucking.
I think you rock with some twang.
What the fuck did you just? I rock with some twang.
You do. You fucking wear Western boots. You just bought new Western boots.
I was to replace my old. They're not Western boots. They're regular boots with a bit of Western flair on them.
They're cowboy boots.
Yeah.
You're
you know
the
what?
dark
It's
cowboy.
It's crazy that I wear the cowboy boots, yet I'm the one being ridden here. Ridden ragged.
Ew.
You thought a nag was the kind of horse that we have on the farm? Turns out it's actually the thing that my co-host does to me.
Oh man.
I got a couple
any
things.
Of this.
I got a couple things to say about you, Liz.
Yeah.
I think that you're.
Watch yourself.
What things do women dress like? You're a Karen, and trying to think what Shine.
I'm more concerned that you don't know what year it is.
You look like you dress from Zara.
That's so mean.
And guess what else?
I don't dress like that.
Guess what else? Did you buy that outfit in the fucking city? Because you look like you came from Urban Outfitters.
See, here's the thing. Now, you're being mean when I was actually trying to pay you a compliment.
You're saying you're...
Those are all good things. Like, he know what I'm saying. They were all good things that I was saying. They were all, like, very positive, like, compliments about you.
Yeah.
The man that I do the podcast with that I genuinely really like. And you're here turning back on me. Now you're just, like, saying mean things to me. Saying that I'm, like, some fast fashion, like, dumbass bitch who goes to, like, fucking
now I feel
Shine.
like an
First of all,
asshole.
never, ever bought anything off of that fucking, like, I don't know what, like, child slave ship, like, horrible store. And you're just, like, being mean to me and saying mean things. I don't even know how you say it.
She in them clothes from there.
I'm not.
You know Jerry Lee Lewis killed 3 people?
Wait. Yes, I did know that.
Isn't that insane? The killer.
Wait, why did you just pivot?
He's rockabilly. Liz, how about this? Let's record. You know what? I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm sorry. I genuinely did not really understand what any of the words I was saying meant. I thought you were being mean to me because to
Did
me,
you really?
rockabilly guys are like,
No,
listen,
but you
I
gotta
used to
keep
do a
up
lot
with
of math.
things. It's all different now.
It's
Remember when we saw Kaya Gerber on the street?
she was. Check this out, man. You ever heard of this chick? We're walking down the fucking street, me and Liz, and I do full on kind of rockabilly wolf eyes.
Dude, you went like, oh, woo, God. There was steam coming out your ears. The tongue was on the ground. I had to like pick it up and throw it over your shoulder.
I was
very much like a continental soldier.
Yeah, I was. My nipples must have. I mean, it was like 3 inches.
Um,
And I'm like,
by the way, and what was the cutest thing ever is I immediately, obviously, I spot a model like, I mean, I see that shit coming a mile away.
I think you spot a model quicker than me. Okay.
Me, Liz, #1 modelizer. Mm-hmm. And
#2 maybe.
This cutie pie next to me turns to me and he goes, "That was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." And I was like, that is literally Cindy Crawford's daughter.
Which is crazy because Cindy Crawford is one of the few people whose name I can remember when I'm trying to think of a hot chick.
She's a supermodel.
All of my references for like beautiful women are from when I was a child. And so now I'm like,
do you talk to your therapist about that?
What should I say?
Just what you told me. I think she could take it from there.
You know, I'm not. She didn't need to learn those things.
We
she
should
was
get
with,
to the.
No, check this out. She was with Elvis.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
I could have fucked that dude up in a heartbeat. If I could win her heart.
You could out rockabilly. Maybe you could do dance off.
Well, here's the thing. If you beat up a girl's boyfriend, you should get to be her boyfriend.
Yeah.
That seems indisputable to me. Even if you're not that strong and maybe you have like, you're of slight build, but if you pack, technically it's a 5-shooter, and you take him out, you get to be her husband.
I don't think that is good
Let's
at all.
Talk about the interview.
I don't think we should talk about it. I think we should just get right into it.
Let's turn on that record there, Mr. DJ man. Go on down to the Tupelo of the podcast. Hello, my name is Microchip. So nice of you to join me here, my cybernetic. Oh, where do microchips live? Computer.
Gaming consoles.
That's,
Also fridges now and light bulbs.
Yes. And Kindle e-readers connected to your Amazon Prime account. What's that? Did you just make a purchase of a book? Ding. Ding.
So stupid.
Ding. Downloading. Yes, I believe you have. Douglas Rushkoff's book. In fact, Douglas Rushkoff himself has been downloaded into your Kindle Fire Amazon e-reader that you're displaying on your what is it? Rico TV?
Roku. What? Roku.
We're on the Roku right now. And in fact, Douglas Rushkoff...
No, but Amazon has its own TV thing.
The Amazon Roku Fire Stick.
Fire Stick.
What the fuck kind of name is it? You're joking. Fire Stick?
Dude, everything Amazon is dick. So Fire Stick plus the logo looks like a dick.
Mm-hmm. The dongle. That's not them.
That's
but
not them.
There's probably
everything.
you can buy
I'm
them
telling
on
you,
Amazon.
fucking Bezos has got a thing about that.
Well, let me, the computer, finish introducing our guest. And I have a full list of your books, which I'm going to read. Douglas has written 7,000. The Library of Ptolemy? That was in history, right? That was, and Alexander. Do not hold a candle to this man who has written a book about basically every part of a microchip. We've got. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to read them all.
Including the human. Yeah.
All right. Siberia, Life in the Trenches, where he invented raving. The Gen X Reader, where he invented Generation X. Media,
Virus.
where he invented virality.
At least I did invent that.
Okay, all right. That one is not a lie. And we are here. Are we allowed to say the name of the new book?
Please. Lots of times.
Okay. Well, you know what? Why don't you say it?
Survival of the Richest. Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires.
He is also a soon-to-be. Do you have tenure?
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind. He will not be a fired professor after this interview. And also a former member of Psychic TV,
Yeah, that's crazy.
which blew my shit out.
Yeah.
Hearing
Big
that.
fans of Psychic TV.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic.
Blew my shit out, too.
Yeah, I mean, great band.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, to our listeners, if you don't know who Psychic TV is, like, first of all,
You're out of your mind.
turn the podcast off.
Godstar?
Yeah, you got some work
Get
to
outta
do.
here. One
you
of the
gotta learn
greatest
how to
hits.
be cool.
Yeah. Don't listen to podcasts. Listen
Well,
to a damn
listen
rock
to
and roll.
us,
Well,
but-
maybe afterwards. Listen to a damn rock and
after
roll
the
record.
podcast.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Oh, now you have to ask the first question. Douglas, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm super fan. I'm a super fan. You too were the not even the background, the foreground as I was writing this book.
Oh my God.
It really was, because I've always written these, yes, I wrote like 20 books, but they're all kind of polemics, like, oh, this is the problem with this, and here's why, and here's
Yeah.
the theory behind it, and here's the history. And listening to you, I realized, no, I want to tell stories about these actual people. And rather than being so friggin' serious about it, this is actually funny. This is absurd.
It's
These
just very
people are
absurd.
absurd. And it helped. It's so healing. It's so healing for me to be able to laugh at Epstein and Bezos and Thiel and these guys, because it's not just monstrous. It's also just pathetic.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and the book is which I've read, is chock full of stories. I mean, just incredible stories. You have been around these guys. And by the way, we're talking about, like you said, Bezos, Thiel, Sergey Brin, like the big movers and shakers of, I don't know, like Silicon Valley. I mean,
The names
it goes
you
beyond
know.
that. Stephen
Yeah.
Pinker, another a guy who makes a lot of appearances in the book.
Yeah, and Dawkins, and I mean these guys, and it's so weird because I wrote these books and I started doing this talk about the time I met these. I thought I was doing a talk for these bankers, and it turned out to be these 5 billionaires who came into the green room and wanted to know, basically, where to put their bunkers for the apocalypse. And I'm like, why are you guys talking to a Marxist media theorist about where to put your friggin' bunkers? Like, I'm
Why?
gonna water
Why?
test-
Why, though?
Because I was right about various futuristic things, or right about the net, or right about viral media, or right about this crash.
So
But
they
that's
thought
not-
that you could tell them like where exactly in New Zealand they should build their underwater yurt or whatever they're doing.
Well, and the big question was, which is the most insane, the most sociopathic one, was how do we maintain control of our security force after the event? Right? Because their money's going to be worthless. So
Yeah.
what do they do? And they're
Yeah.
like, do we do shock collars? Do special combinations on the safe? I mean, they're such like uber simplistic Walking Dead
Yes.
plots, and ones that wouldn't even make it on the 9th season of Walking Dead. They're that bad. And I'm the little sarcastic Jew. I'm like, well, if you want your head of security to take care of you in the apocalypse, maybe pay for his daughter's bat mitzvah today.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
They laughed me out of the room, but it was what set me on the journey to do
Yeah.
this. Both I realized people respond to the story so much more than the ideas. When I tell that story, they're like, oh, tell me more. Where else did you see them? Where else? It's like, well, it was
Well,
this-
where are they going? So I can go
Right.
there too. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
some
really.
people.
I know. Well, there's a lot of that email that came after that too, and the most email was from people who are like building bunkers. It's like, oh, can you introduce me? I've got the right bunker for those
Yes.
billionaires. I've got a farm.
They're trying to use you as a middleman to connect to the bunkers.
to upsell. I'll give you a cut.
So, I mean, That's really the most, I think, famous sort of instance. Elon wanting to go to Mars and to a lesser extent
Yeah.
Bezos to space. But it's the New Zealand bunker community, let's say, that I think has really made the most news in the past 5 or 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it coalesces with a number of things. One is psychotic, is almost like cartoonishly evil, usually tech billionaires. And two, also like the generalized fear that people have about climate change and also,
War,
secondary to that,
pestilence,
exactly,
all that.
plague,
Sure.
I guess that's the kind of same thing as pestilence. Yeah, I mean, my question is, these people actually think that like they will do this? I mean, there's actual construction of bunkers down there.
Yeah, well, they've lived a life of believing they can outrun the effects of the things that they've done. They're trying to earn enough money and build enough technology to insulate themselves from the reality they're creating by earning money and building technology that way. It's like make a car that goes fast enough to escape from its own exhaust. And they've been able to do that. And I mean, we all do that to some extent. My parents were like, we live in a bad neighborhood, but we're going to make more money and we're going to get out of that bad neighborhood into a good one. And it's like, never does it occur
Bizarre
to
to
people.
think of that on this scale.
Yeah,
though.
but it's the same scale. But it's like, so when the world becomes a bad neighborhood, what do? Let's go to Mars. Let's build a bunker. Do a seastead.
Yes. Well,
We're
classic move. the
build a
seastead,
thing,
yeah.
And Epstein had one of those islands
Sure.
too. It's like, get my harem of 200 teenagers and impregnate them in my little kingdom,
Repopulate the earth.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's so striking to me about that idea, though, is because, I mean, obviously, apocalypse narratives have become very in vogue in the past 10, 20 years, right? Especially in the past 10 years. Season 9 of The Walking Dead or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, we're probably on there's like 5 Walking Dead
It's still
spin-off
on.
shows.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still on. Walking Dead will be on for the rest of your life.
Right, because there's like 9 spin-offs.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely.
Gotta love very plastic IPs.
Yeah.
Everyone
it's-
stream.
I mean,
That show would have been, if they used the 28 Days zombies on that show, it would have been over in one
if
season.
they could run?
Fast-moving zombies,
My whole thing though is like, if there is an apocalypse, right? And I'm not immediately handed some sort of like warlord capabilities. It doesn't sound good to me to live in a bunker with a bunch of like slaves, whatever, what your security force that you're no longer paying. I would probably rather die with everybody else I know. And my question here is like, these people, like, they become sort of obsessed with surviving longer or like enduring these things that they themselves help create, which actually sounds almost like hellish to me. But the enthusiasm with which they approach it is extraordinary. And like, how do they have any justifications for this? Or is there any like, I mean, how do they even think about it themselves?
I think it's a secret wish more
Yeah.
than it is a fear, And this was when I was with stories. I was with Timothy Leary when he was reading the book about Nicholas Negroponte starting Media Lab, Stuart Brand's book, and Stuart Brand has all of his own issues as well. And he's writing this book praising the Media Lab, and we're just sitting there during the day reading, and he's writing all this stuff, Leary, in the book, and felt tip, and I'm thinking he loves this book. And he finally finishes the book, he slams the cover, and he throws it across the room, and he goes, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was this horrible thing. I'm like, what? And he says, first, less than 3% of the names in the index are women. What does that tell you? And then he said, and second, he said, these guys are trying to recreate the womb. That's what they want to do with their technology. They all had mothers who were not able to anticipate their every need when they were growing up. And now they want technology, some algorithm to bring them each thing. They want to live in a little tech bubble and have stuff brought to them. The ideal, sex slave robot,
Yes.
this and that. So there's no real women, no real nature, nothing unpredictable. Everything comes. But that means being ultimately completely alone. And the apocalypse, this fear of pollution and infection and crime and climate.
Something breaking through that bubble of being alone, basically,
Right.
that they've constructed. I mean, Peter Thiel is like famously I remember that New Yorker profile on him where it's like very clear that what he wants to construct is like, he's like, we could just have Neverland. I mean, not in the Michael Jackson way, although perhaps, maybe, I don't know, not saying anything.
I've heard some things.
Actionable about Mr. Thiel. However, it was like, a very like childlike fantasy of like creating this, like you can just have whatever you want and be a kid forever world. That's like at the heart of a lot of this stuff that you're talking about.
But and this is what I was thinking about last night when I was trying to think about why Epstein and your work was so formative for me in thinking about this, is that these guys, it's not just a return to childhood, but to level up from everyone else in humanity. Like Peter Thiel's thing is his book, 0 to 1. What does that mean? I'm going to be an order of magnitude above everybody else. Or Zuckerberg with Meta. Oh, we're going to go meta on everybody else. It's always about, the derivative, the leveling up, the moving one order of magnitude above the common man. So now we are what Stuart Brand said, we are as gods, and we may as well start acting like it. That they really think that they're one level above the common folk. That's what allows a sociopath like Epstein to have slaves, because they're not human. They're not thinking beings. They're flesh run by their genes. That's why a guy like him then gets in bed, so to speak, with Dawkins and Pinker and Dennett and all these people who have this staunchly atheistic, scientific view of humanity as just we're robots running on genetic code, because then why not abuse these people?
I mean, with Epstein, I think that one of the more salacious and really sort of extraordinary details of I guess the Epstein case in general is his sort of late period fascination with transhumanism, with surrounding himself with these scientific types, having all these conferences, flying these guys out to the island, and of course, his ranch in New Mexico, and sort of trying to transcend. It's interesting because he's not a tech guy, right? And by all accounts, he wasn't actually himself very scientifically literate, which he seemed to know to an extent, because that's why he hired so many of these guys to hang out with him. They can do the thinking for him, but it's part of this. Transcending into godhood, right? And it seems like with Epstein, he had a much more like biological approach to it. Which no, I'm not even trying to make a pun there. But he doesn't come at it from the tech angle. But you do have these people who do, like Zuckerberg and Thiel and all these other characters who do, and then you sort of see the collision of that mindset with ideas like, I'm talking about the blockchain as sort of an idea, there was a stand-in for this like idea of the metaverse and all these kind of things. And I think that, you run into some real problems with the viability of a lot of the transhumanist ideas, namely that a lot of them don't work yet, which is fine by me. But I think a lot of these guys like Zuckerberg have this idea like, okay, well, we can have a metaverse now. And I can sort of like, if I'm in control of these kind of thing, I can kind of level up from everybody, or at least I'll be in control of everybody else's experience, which in essence, sort of makes him a god in that particular realm. And it's this urge that these people have that I think really, there is a lack of valorization that I think most regular people have for like most tech billionaires, Elon Musk and sort of Jeff Bezos accepted. These are not popular characters, right? Like Sergey Brin is not like a widely respected person among like, just regular the man on the street. Certainly Mark Zuckerberg is not. I think it's sort of this, it's this almost like inhuman version of being evil, as opposed to this very much more human version of being evil that like billionaires, or not billionaires necessarily, but the rich and business owners used to have, where we have this almost like I don't know, yeah, like God, like really they can become gods.
It is interesting, yeah, because it's like in the good old days, evil robber barons they were part of the industrial age. Right, so you could have lots of land, lots of oil, maybe lots of gold, all this stuff. And it's like the entrance of digital into it allows for a certain kind of transcendence. So digital is a symbol system. It's not reality.
Yeah.
So everything's kind of transmogrified to this other space. Digitalism and capitalism go really well together because money was already a symbol system. It's like, oh no, you can't have this food. You don't have enough money. It's like,
Infinite derivatives.
Right, it's a derivative. So digital's derivative of reality, and once they see that, it's like, oh, now we can finally do that alchemical Gnostic transformation to this realm, and the realm is real, and the realm, we are committing more money and physical planet to that realm. I mean, we're burning what? We're burning, there's a giant Bitcoin effigy. We believe in you, coin. We believe we'll burn our planet to prove our faith in this coin. And I think they're looking at it, if they're of that religion, of course they want to go and live where the Bitcoin lives, not where the old industrial culture lives.
Being close, not being close to these guys, but obviously, talking to them face to face a lot more than, myself and Brace at least.
I talked to Teal.
How close are they to some of the things they claim are on their to-do list, I guess? I think that some people have made some lofty claim. You hear these things every once in a while, oh, we're actually a lot closer to the Matrix than, you guys would, you little people would actually understand, or, I've talked to people who have certainly met with some top executives at the big, gaming platforms that are oh, there's some real legit shit down the pipeline that's going to be really scary in that way, but it also seems still so far away from this total dream of the meta. We talked about this in our episode about the metaverse, that just even from a hardware standpoint, that the internet is not even set up to do the thing that they want to do. And there's a paradox. They have to build the metaverse on top of the internet, which is a system that won't allow it to kind of have this simultaneous reality experience that they want. They can mirror it, but it still won't be the real thing that they're after.
The internet can barely do Netflix at this point.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, Netflix can barely do Netflix.
But even the idea of a simultaneous experience is basically impossible because of the way that servers work and all of that shit. But I wonder in that way if it acts as this constant desire that they'll just forever be chasing, but will never be able to get, because it would require them to actually move off of the internet in order to rebuild it up from scratch or something.
Yeah, which they'll never do.
Which they'll never do because they would have to relinquish everything that, the power that they do have, which is okay, it sounds scary to say that they're these, they want to level up. It sounds so absurd. And, they think of themselves as one day they'll be kings, but in some ways they already are. And I don't mean in some kind of oh, they're CEOs or they're in charge of this thing or whatever, but these platforms govern our lives in so many ways, and they are in charge of them.
That's why I don't I don't think they can do most of what they say.
Yeah.
And I don't think they will be able to anytime soon. Even the guys I liked who were doing Second Life, I remember I interviewed them for a documentary in 2008, and them saying, oh, within 10 years, we're going to have virtual reality so good, you will not be able to distinguish between reality and
I definitely could distinguish when I was
I think so. And you will be able to, I think, forever. Toy Story, great. It's good. It's good. But it's the Toy Story. It's animation. It's great. It's just shadows. I love it. But I'm never going to mistake it for reality. Deep fakes maybe, but a deep fake is not a simulation reality.
Well,
it's a freaking video.
It's a question of if you're going to mistake it or if it's going to be so much more seductive than reality, which is obviously where they're going with it.
Right. And that's just like the same person who wants the Japanese sex doll as opposed to the real thing. If you find that more seductive, there's a problem with you. Not, you know what I mean? It's not that the doll's so good. It's that you're so fucked up. That you need this thing. But that's more compelling. And that's where I think it is. I remember Jaron Lanier, one of the inventors of virtual reality back when, saying the problem is going to be that as we get better at virtual reality, human beings are going to get better at distinguishing between VR and real life, which I believe. But then I think the implication of that for these guys is, then what we have to do is rather than making our tech better, we have to work on making people stupider. In other words, if a computer passes the Turing test, it's because they've gotten people dumb enough not to be able to know what another human being is. And that seems to be working. The dumbing down of certainly Americans.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that certainly you hear people complain just in your day-to-day life. I certainly hear people complain about how they lack an attention span anymore. That's usually the sort of the first symptom I feel like that people really bring out, like, oh, I never read anymore. Or like, it's hard for me to pay attention to anything for a long period of time. And that is just simply, speaking for myself, I didn't use the internet, I guess, that much until like 5 or 6 years ago. It's not as big a part of my life as it is. Yeah, I mean,
really?
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh man, I've been like internet number one user for a very long time.
I used it. I just didn't I didn't have a smartphone until very, very much later than I think a lot of my contemporaries.
Yeah.
And I did not have, let's say, consistent Wi-Fi for long stretches of my life. But it seems like there is like an actual, I don't want to call it physical, but I would say like an actual physical and sort of spiritual and mental decline that someone goes through with prolonged usage of the internet, which at the same time makes you more amenable to some of the worst excesses of something that has a lot of really bad components to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of there's nasty behavioral change algorithms that are in there. And you go to the captology lab of BJ Fogg at Stanford, and you see, oh, this is where they learn to take the algorithms from slot machines and put them in your social media feed. So and there's all that happening. On the other hand, people can listen to 2.5-hour podcasts about friggin' philosophy and Sam Harris and wherever they're going for their, the long form stuff. So they're watching, 39 episodes of Westworld in a row.
Yeah,
so
they do be doing that.
Something. I'm not so worried about the attention span so much as the values that get transmitted by some of this media.
Well, I think it's also, I want to bring up two other things, right? And two things I want to bring up, and I don't know if I can bring them up back to back, because I think that we're going to probably like diverge a little bit. But one is narcissism, which is the behavioral thing, and the other is time. And it's funny because it's like you think of these guys making these platforms and there a lot of it does feel top down, but a lot of it's like bottom up too, right? And I've always thought of social media as kind of weaponizing narcissism in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is like there's a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, in like popular like notions of what narcissism is, where people think of this like it's the guy with like, oh, like he's got big like puffed out chest and he's got this big idea of like who he is.
I'm
it's
right
like
here.
Big, like grandiose. He's like Mr. Ego. But like that's not actually what real narcissism is. Like narcissism really is an inability to connect with other people. And it's seeing that like there's always something wrong with your life. And what the problem is that you can't connect with people, but that's not how you view it, right? And it's what kind of puts like masturbation over sex, or what puts people feel shame over guilt, because it's all about the self, and you're in a kind of like glass box, unable to connect with other people. And I think that this is not like a new observation or whatever, but social media. I mean, these are how these guys also think, right? They're all clear narcissists. And I think most Americans are. I think there's something about the American culture that kind of breeds this, which is a whole different topic. But they've built these platforms and these apps that amplify it and push it further and further and further for everyone else. And so it's like you say 0 to 1, like that's also, that's the mechanism of going viral, right? That's the dream of like literally going from 0 to like 10 or a billion or a million. That's like how TikTok works, right? It's like out of nowhere and then
Slots
suddenly
too.
You're viral. Absolutely. And it's all one thing is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But that it's like, it's both like these guys from the top down empowering, but it's like, it's fucking coming up from.
Right. It's this exponential thing, or like the scientists would call it like emergence. Like,
absolutely.
Boom, now we're at this new state of complexity.
Yeah.
Right.
And so almost everyone's trying to fucking level up.
Right. But the narcissism is really real. And narcissism is partly, it's just a result of the way these things were programmed, that you have your homepage and your profile, which just becomes like the new mirror. So everybody's adjusting, how do I look to the world and all that. And the other problem is that the way you connect on these technologies is intrinsically antisocial. It's like all the 500,000 years of painstakingly evolved mechanisms for establishing rapport with another person, like your head nodding and my
Totally.
mirror neurons firing and the oxytocin
Just
going
kind of
through my blood.
gestalt taking in.
Yeah,
human
yeah,
interaction.
It's gone.
It's all
you
gone.
try it even on Skype, you can't see it. So what happens is the person says they agree with you, but your body's experience is, oh, but I didn't get the cues that mean they agree with me. So it actually breeds distrust every time
Right.
someone says yes. It's like I used to talk about the women on Real Housewives, that they get in fights because their faces have so much Botox, they can't make facial expressions that are consonant with what they're saying. So the other person thinks they're lying. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, your daughter's going in for cancer
That's
testing.
fantastic.
You really
I love
are a
that
media
theory.
theorist.
I love that theory.
That's media theory. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you get it. That to me is the highest form of media theory. But if you do that at the university, they're like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what are you
yeah.
quoting? What is that? I'm like, this is it. This is it. This is the misuse of technology, right? You're locking down your face. It goes to your time stuff. You're locking down your face at age 29 makes you inaccessible to the age and moment that you're actually in.
Yeah.
Which is the classic technologist's error.
I mean, the other thing that the internet, or not the internet, but because I want to be specific. So social media really pushes is, you have to create an identity, right? And this latching onto the identity creation, which is also like a thing about narcissism, right? Which is like the identity and who the person is so central to the narcissist's understanding of their self and their relation to anyone else in the world.
Right.
Because, I mean, people famously talk about this all the time. It's like everything on social media, it makes you feel like you're a character in your own movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone else is ancillary
Yeah.
to that. They're the like, you're just the
Supporting
co-host of the
cast.
podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then that's just
and there's
a
no
notch,
understanding of anyone else's interior.
which is a notch away from sociopathy. Right? So you go
Absolutely.
from
But-
narcissism to then not relating to other people as humans anymore.
Yeah.
Or
And-
you're just playing a role in each situation.
Absolutely. And it's all built into the architecture of these systems.
Right.
Right. And so
By
there's-
people who suffer from this from the
well,
get-go.
Yeah. And it's, and now we are all created in their image or whatever. And so it's
Right.
like,
And
I mean,
now
this
they're
is
running
something
away.
that-
And look what they did to us. Now society's crumbling because of it. And they're like, oh shit, where's the escape
where
hatch?
do
I'm
we
going to get out of
go?
here.
It's like, where are
right.
you safe from the pitchfork?
I mean, that
Yeah.
reminds me of like the spate of articles that came out talking about like, oh, well, this such and such tech CEO doesn't let their kids use the internet,
Right.
Oh,
or
yeah.
like or like their child's not allowed to have Instagram
Yeah.
or something. I mean, that's part of the same impulse of escape, right? Like,
Yeah,
of-
their kids are going to Rudolph Steiner's school and they have an
Totally.
organic goat share and
Yeah.
whatever else. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, what like that impulse.
burying horns for the crop or whatever.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you know,
Steiner
no.
and the
Yeah.
esoteric farming. Excuse me, biodynamic.
Believe me, I've done
Biodynamic,
some
yeah.
esoteric farming myself.
Well, also, by the way, I want to point out they're more than happy to take the checks from the massive contracts that they're sending all of this technology to public schools.
Right.
Yeah,
And cutting teachers and actually gutting public schools and just shoving all of these basically experimental education technologies on fucking poor kids.
Right. But if you give kids iPads for their classrooms, just watch. The assessments that you get after are better because the assessments are coming from the same iPad app.
Yeah.
They're learning everything really well that you can teach on an iPad to kids, but they're not doing the basic mimesis of what does an adult who is learning look like? How do we? I have more kids every year. I'm teaching at Queens College now. More kids come in with a note the first day of class from their psychiatrist saying, please excuse Johnny from conversation in class because he has social anxiety.
But these are adults.
Well, they're 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, what the hell happened K through 12 that they come to college and they can't?
Have a conversation.
Yeah.
That is actually. I mean,
this we were just talking about this before we met up with you, but it's like this is this tension that I have personally and like I struggle with because I see this shit and I think about this like way more than I should. And I'm just like, there is no way through this. Like it's all bad. And I feel this retreat that also doesn't jive with my like my own kind of understanding of what I think my politics are, right? Which is like forward thinking and thinking of the future and kind of this, communism and the vision of communism has always been kind of this march and progress towards, a kind of utopian future or whatever. I mean, that's not the way I would describe it. So don't quote me on that, which is a great thing that I'm saying on a podcast that's being recorded. However, I'm just trying to get to the point, which
No
is
transcripts,
that
though.
I want to, counterpose that to then I want to push back on these like Luddite tendencies that I have. But it's really fucking difficult
Right.
when I see what the fuck all this shit is doing, not to just our social interactions, but like, I think like an interior thing, like our relationship to ourselves is changing because of these things.
Yeah, but it's just there's this kind of 20th century narrative structure
Yes.
that is the problem here. It's that ends justifies the means journey to the thing. How are we going to get to it?
Yeah.
And if you're going to sacrifice something now for it, then chances are you're doing the wrong thing. It's like at the end of this book, that's what I finally got to. Is
Yeah.
like, if you're not doing it in the moment, you're not doing it. And these tech bros, the real problem is they honestly believe that it's okay to sacrifice the lives and quality of life of the 8 billion people alive today, because there's going to be many trillion people spread out through the cosmos in the future. And if we have to waste this planet for them, it's okay. And that's where I'm like, no. You're making a weird bet. If you're not doing it in the moment, there is never an excuse to not do it. So it's not a matter of not making progress. It's a matter of realizing that progress has to be happening in it. What's your theory of change? I mean, I got the call from Bannon and his people to go on War Room Pandemic as
You
a
didn't-
podcast.
and you said
I didn't
no.
do it. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Cool. And
there
some
was-
of us never get calls to go on War Room
Oh,
Pandemic.
I'll get you the call.
And
But
it's-
I couldn't do it because I couldn't figure out a way. There's a lot of reasons why, but I couldn't figure out a way
yeah.
that whatever I did on the show would
Yeah.
be bigger news than the fact that I was on the show.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I was just going to give
very familiar with that dynamic.
it's a hard thing. I mean, we had to think about that coming here, of course, but I'll do more good somehow.
Oh my God.
No, this is like heaven for me.
TrueAnon Pandemic. War Room TrueAnon.
More from TrueAnon. But where Bannon's vision of where things go. I mean, I wrote this book, Team Human, which gets really into a lot of natural imagery and people connecting in nature and fractals and all. And Bannon loved it. He loved it. He talks about it. And I'm realizing, and when you use, like Heidegger got in this problem, when you use too much kind of nature imagery in your stuff, fascists tend to
yeah, they
really
love
like
it.
Oh no. And then I realized his vision of where he wants things is probably really close to mine. Sort of an anarcho-syndicalist, lots of local economies networked together with the land and doing good things. But his theory of change is really off, right? He's got the accelerationist Peter Thiel theory of change. Like, let's just wipe the slate clean and then get to the thing. So that's where progress and the tech bro notion of progress, let's just pedal to the metal, keep going, and it's not compatible with our shared leftist communist vision. You don't reach for communism. You just start right here, right now.
Well,
like Jesus Jones.
My thing is, though, about like there is, the notion of escape in general to me, especially in relation to technology, not even to like the natural world or war room pandemics or anything like that, is like you're saying, like there's this impulse to become essentially, I mean, obviously the Luddites more complex than this, but to have this like sort of Luddite impulse to like smash the phone, you cannot do that now. I mean, unless you really structure your entire life or restructure your entire life around that, it is basically, I mean, you can't even go to half the restaurants because of these fucking QR codes, which there needs to be federal legislation about.
Well, that was a COVID excuse, but
exactly. And now it's
My thing is now I'm going to flip the script on pandemic truthers, which is that actually the pandemic was fake cover to get us to actually adopt QR codes.
Yes, and it needs to be
And
exposed.
that's the
The
real
whole thing.
Yeah.
That's the real COVID cover up.
It's like New Coke was to let us
because
get
they tried for so long and we were so good at rejecting. We said,
Yeah.
no, we don't need this. Why are you putting a fucking QR code on a wheat paste poster for no, get
crazy.
it out of here, Vans
Now?
or whatever. And nope, now it's like, hey, can I look at the menu? Yeah, on your phone. No, I can't see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's too
agree.
tiny.
And the thing is, like, there is no, to me, like, I think a much more pessimistic view than I think most people. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm the smartest guy in the world, but I am in touch with my own spirit, I think, a little bit more than some people. I said some people like I was referring to you guys, but I just literally mean some people.
Yeah, like gypsies. So some people.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't see a future that is not just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Right. And most of the people coming up with solutions are talking about, well, let's get more of the value you're creating on the blockchain so it will be fair to you.
Yeah.
Or let's give you more digital tools so you can assume sovereignty over yourself. Like self-sovereignty is itself. Talk about meta. How could you get more meta than self? So I'm the king of myself.
They're going to make you a renter of parts of yourself.
Right, exactly.
Which they figured out somehow.
Exactly. But there is, I'm more hopeful about that maybe than you are, because I don't think you have to get out of this technocracy that we're living in to do it. It sounds so corny, but look in the eyes of your lover, hold hands,
He's always saying that.
Help the lady across the street, invite them over to sing crazy songs. I mean, the human connection is a moment away. Just start doing favors for each other. Be intimate, and you can do it in any. I mean, they friggin' sang songs in the refugee camps and death camps and everywhere. You can find the spirit. That's what they don't believe in. That's what Dawkins and Pinker and all these guys, that's when they laughed at me. And there's another story in the book. They laughed at me, and it was funny because it was Naomi Wolf. It was way back when, but it was in the 90s, before all the current stuff was going on. And Naomi Wolf was just arguing, don't you think there's a possibility that there's some kind of soul or spirit or other something going on here? And they're like, what? What could you possibly mean? They're like laughing at her. And I try to bring up, Wittgenstein, theory, societies of meaning and communities of that. And they're like, oh, so you're a moralist. And it's like the next time I see them, it's in that picture that Jenny Harden put on Twitter of them all in the Lolita Express going, I'm like, I'm the moralist. Well, look at you, But it dovetails so well, the idea of, if people have no souls, if there is no spiritual thing to compromise, then it's okay to treat them like slave bugs or whatever you're doing to them.
I mean, they really think people are actually, doesn't someone refer to people as like meat suits?
Yeah, well, and there was a lot of us in the early cyber days. It was like, this is meat space.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, meat space. It sounded low.
Well, that's another question I have, because, you are, and I hope I'm not stepping on your toes here, you are Gen X.
Yeah. I think so. The real Gen X has been forgotten, but the real Gen X is like me, Doug Copeland, Rick Linkletter. We're older than what they normally call Gen X now. But yeah,
It's slackers.
yes,
No,
slackers.
but
Yes,
you were
Slack is the highest attribute of mankind.
You were pretty tapped into the early internet, right? And we've talked a lot about the early internet on the show in both the I guess the history of it, but also sort of the spirit behind it, or the spirit behind a lot of its early proponents. I can't remember where I read you said this, but you said this somewhere, that you still have a lot of the optimism, or that you still have optimism that you had back then. What I want to know is that, like, the internet has changed so much, and society also, because of the internet or alongside the internet, lots of things have changed since the 1990s. Groundbreaking statement I'm making here. It's almost like a totally different beast that, like, I would be pretty difficult to have envisioned back then.
Yeah.
And, there is no, that barrier between meat space and digital space is really permeable now, right? Like now, especially with portable phones and stuff, like it used to be, you would actually have to sit down maybe in a chair and, actually, press a button and wait for all the noises to make Brian Eno's little song play. Now it's like the constant flipping between a phone and someone you're talking to, or your phone and, listening to something, and then like having to take your earbud out and be like, please don't touch my butt on the train or whatever. That to me creates like we're talking about flattening time. And, you wrote this book, Present Shock, really in large part about that. And I think that book's like almost 10 years old at this point. It seems to me to have been, I don't understand how the brain can even comprehend sort of switching between those two realities, because sometimes, you're enmeshed in social media or whatever, talking to people on there, and then actually having to like return basically to the real world. That barrier is so thin now that it seems like it's probably doing something pretty bad to our brains.
Well, something different. I mean, that barrier goes away. That's sort of what Neil Postman wrote about in Technopoly. That first you invent a technology in order to accomplish some task. Then you start retrofitting the world to make it easier to use that technology, and then you end up kind of living inside that technology. It becomes the environment. But you could look at something, and I know that techno-optimists do this kind of thing, but you could look at something like language that way.
Yeah.
So before we had words, you walk into another tribe, it's like, what is that? That guy's using mouth noises, and then that woman is going and doing something. He's got magic with that, and it's the step, okay, now I'm going to use speak. And I'm going to do some of that. Ooh, and now I'm doing it. And now I'm just regular. Now I'm doing it. Until you live in a world where speech is... And it's how we think. We use words actually. We use words to think about everything else now. It's everything's linguistic. So it's not necessarily bad. It's just different. And you've got to understand. I mean, this is sort of a sales pitch for understanding media theory. But if you understand the affordances of different media environments, you're less likely to become a fucking asshole in them.
Yeah.
Right? And these guys who are building stuff with these technologies, they drop out of school when they're 19. They turn these venture capitalists into their father figures, and they kind of transfer parental authority onto them, and then they live to have an IPO.
Yeah.
And so everything we're living, all this stuff we're building, it's all about that. Either that or these infantilized escape, or narcissistic visions of the world.
It's interesting because just because you mentioned the IPO thing, it kind of lit something up in my brain, which is
we are going public.
Yeah. No, but that kind of story, that like the unicorn story, right? Like that feels very of a time. And we're at the end of that time. And I mean, the reason why I say that is because that was during the like zero interest regime, which was not totally unprecedented, but somewhat unprecedented in terms of there just being so much fucking cash everywhere that and right at the point when a lot of this technology was just emerging and all these, there was kind of this perfect storm, right? And we are now moving into a time when a lot of that money is drying up in different ways, and a lot of capital is kind of getting a little more scared. You're not seeing people extend money in the same kind of ways. But people are just not lending. The credit isn't there. And you see a lot of that drying up clearly in like the crypto space, which is having its own sort of, I'm not gonna lie, I'm having a little Schadenfreude with that. It's, I feel bad for a lot of people, but it's really hard to feel completely bad about the whole thing. But, so we're going to kind of enter this time where there isn't going to be the ability for these kind of like unicorn stories to continue in that same way, which is sort of going to change the landscape and how we think of like all this new stuff kind of emerging.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to be in this, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I probably will be, but it feels like it's going to be a lot more difficult for all of these new sorts of things to kind of pop up and emerge as we move forward in this time of like, not zero interest, not fun, flush, frothy money everywhere, kind of VCs just saying, go play.
And it's also because the monopoly players have gotten so big and so good at identifying useful technologies before they have time to have real ideas of their own. They just come in and scoop it up. So it's like you can't, there's no space anymore to do the new great thing.
Do you find like the people who work at these companies, the people who run these companies, actually like, is there a cynicism there? Is there like is there any sort of I know there's self-awareness to the point where they're like, I don't want my kid using the same product I make. But like, there's a lot of highfalutin talk about how their products Snapchat will remake society or whatever. And which in a sense, I think they're right, but probably not in the sense they mean. When encountering these kind of people, like what are they like?
Well, some of them push through to the other side. So they're like the sort of humane technology kinds of people, or the people we saw in that movie, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
You know, they go down to Burning Man or they go to the Amazon and do a bunch of ayahuasca, and they come and they go, oh, I see the evil of my ways. I've, been programming humanity into subservience to these things. So now I'm going to build a new stack and program humanity into better things.
Yeah.
It's like, so they take the same sort of superior model. It's like, oh, so I'm going to do a sense making app or a healthy app or a mindfulness app.
Classic,
and upscale humanity. We're going to reboot humanity's brain to rise to this new level. And I've got a stack for a new eco-farm agricultural city that you will drop a seed in a forest and it will mushroom into this thing. So they take the same kind of techno-solutionist hubris and just apply it to making the world good instead of anything. And their good plans are just as fraught with the narcissistic sociopathy as anything else. And that's where your QAnon people come in. So they hear the vision of these folks of Gates is going to buy up all the agriculture and make a super vaccine. And we're going to have the Great Reset is going to do solar panels overnight. We're going to transform the world
QR
to
codes everywhere.
Right, and put everything on the blockchain. If you tried to transition to green energy in a decade, you would destroy the planet just digging up the lithium for the batteries and it's like it's not going to work either. So the
you also just wouldn't be able to power. I mean, they're just you wouldn't be. Yeah, Europe's
it just
finding
doesn't
out
work.
that it doesn't work.
And the
as easily as they
QAnon
thought.
people, the funniest thing, the sweetest thing about the QAnon conspiracy people is they are taking the tech bros at their word. It's like, okay, you're going to talk like that. This is what, and people are going to believe you. They're going to be friggin' scared of you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because I mean they really talk in this way of like I was saying, like Snapchat is an app that he didn't actually say that. I mean, who knows what the fuck those guys actually said? But my photo app or whatever is just going to totally like revolutionize society. But the thing is, I also kind of take them at their word, although not necessarily. I don't take them in the way that they mean it because QAnon generally draws from like an older audience, right? Like old people who spend kind of paradoxically a lot of time on Facebook, or funnily enough 4chan, which is I think the sweetest irony of any of that.
It's incredible that people can't figure out how to change their passcode, but they can understand how to navigate 4chan.
Yeah, I still don't know.
But the metaphor is so apt.
Yeah.
That we're living in a society where we are being infantilized and shafted by people who are telling us they're taking care of us. You know, and that is the child abuse metaphor. It's perfect. So on a metaphorical level, it's right. And the spirit is being sucked out of them. They all feel like the children. And when you say how these apps are sucking out your soul, that's the adrenochrome.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah, no, I fully agree.
It.
Yeah, no. I am, it's funnily enough also, it's like for a lot of these people, it's kind of elder abuse more than child abuse.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of the financial schemes that kind of came along with QAnon. But yeah, it's just so, to me, that the kind of the great irony of a lot of this stuff is a lot of the people who are really sucked into, especially QAnon, I would say, it's like they talk in these, we talked about this in a previous episode, talk about in terms of I took the red pill and I've kind of broken out of the matrix, but they're breaking out of the matrix by spending 18 hours a day online and restructuring their life, restructuring their familial relations, all this stuff based purely upon words they've read by people they've never interacted with, oftentimes posted anonymously. And you see that, I think, increasingly in that people kind of get sucked into they think that they can break through the more time that you spend on the internet, the more that you're actually able to transcend the internet and I guess become a 1 instead of a 0 or whatever. And it really is just it seems like it's happening. It happens more and more with more social movements and more social movements. And to me, I see that as almost the mainstream future of social movements as happening almost entirely online, and then having these sort of schizophrenic real world effects of just driving people totally insane.
Yeah, a lot of it goes. I was talking about this in Present Shock back in 2013. And I was at the time there was the Tea Party movement.
Yeah.
And I was arguing the Tea Party movement are in present shock. They want everything now. They want their service, they want their thing now.
Yeah.
And at the end of the book, I was talking about this phenomenon I called fractal noia, which is when everything is coming separately in this sort of puntillist way that social media and the internet do, that we have this tendency to try to connect things, to sort of make a single fractal out of the picture, to make sense out of it. And what I was saying was that we're going to get to this place, if you take Tea Party plus fractal noia, you will get the future of politics. And that's what QAnon is. It's a Tea Party rage plus the research networking of ideas.
Yeah.
And it's no longer the fun of the Art Bell show. This is like, scary. And you get that phenomenon. And it's really hard to unwind that one, because it's fulfilling such a deep need for sense making.
Yeah, and what you talk about in that book, I think, which is like our desire to create narratives.
Yes.
And I think that, getting back to kind of like digital, the way that like the digital media, has changed things, like creating narrative. First of all, it's kind of like a paradox, right? Because there's a kind of demand to constantly be creating new narratives, constantly creating content, in the digital space of these like stories that all exist in a very like present moment. And on the flip side of that, like there's a complete narrative collapse in the sense that like, something we talk about on the show a lot, like you want to talk about political implications, there is just a complete and total decay of like any historical memory across all different societies.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this you saw it with the election in the Philippines.
Yeah.
You see it, we just talked about it with Tom, talking about just like, narrative collapse of like, a historical memory of just what the fuck happened in England over the past 20 years. And you see it here. People can't even remember. I mean, it's shocking to me how little understanding of history we all hold of just like really recent history, and it's because we're inundated not just with all of this content at us, but the demand to then create it and put it back out there at the same time. And so we're in this like just oppressive, constant state of like presentism that makes not just understanding and analyzing and thinking about the past impossible, but then there is kind of paradoxically, you can't imagine a future, and yet everything is sort of conditioned on this. I mean, derivatives are all about future results, right? It's all betting on the future, and it's all about future actions, and yet there's no actual like ability to construct any kind of vision of an actual future, right?
Yeah. And even though we've forgotten everything in the past, it's like everything you've done is recorded indelibly and can come back and get you. Every podcast from 10 years ago where you used a word that turns out to be bad later.
You want to, again, talk about narcissism. Shame is the weapon of choice in the digital world, which is the weapon of the narcissist. We're going to make you feel shame for something, or I feel shame for what I've done. I don't feel guilty because I've done something to someone else. I feel shame about myself.
Right.
That is the narcissistic response.
So I feel shame, but there's no apology in that. There's no reconciliation.
There's no reconciliation because it's just about the image of the self.
Right. So how do I do image repair rather than
how do I reconstruct my identity so that it cannot be it cannot be like hit by anyone else, right? What's my armor? What's my it's just fucking bleak shit, if you ask me.
No,
it really is kind of Avatar Matrix shit in a way that I think is just not as literal as like people kind of once imagined it.
Yeah, you die. Well, I don't know. If you die on the internet, you die in real life, which should be, by the way, a law for video games. If you die in a video game,
they come and kill you.
You should die. Yeah.
It would certainly up the stakes. Maybe less people play video games then, which
I think
would
many
good.
fewer would play if they knew. Yeah. But, ideally you'd live in a world where you could kill your avatar and start it again. That's what Genesis Peorage always used to say. If you find yourself in the road, kill him. It's like once you know who you are, you're done with that one and to be somebody else.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that you see attempts at that people make all the time. You know what I mean? Like I've known personally in my own life, like several people who've sort of I think everyone runs into that. You'll see someone that you know on the internet, and it's a totally different person than they were a couple of years ago,
Right.
in real life or on the internet. And then you lose track of them again, and then they reemerge again as like something new. The thing with that though is you can't escape the past use, right? Like someone will dig something up, or every single person out there has some kind of ammunition, because the weapon here is basically multifaceted. You can find everybody's said something stupid or done something stupid or embarrassing, or can be painted in whatever light. But it is this like constant reinvention, which people did prior to the internet. Of course.
Yeah, Madonna and Michael
Exactly.
Jackson and everybody. They always
Yeah.
We were all kids. You always
Right.
experiment with all different things. So
Right.
I'm a goth. Now I'm into
right.
punk
In
music.
sixth
Now
grade, I'm
Yeah.
going to be this.
yeah, now I'm like doing something else. Whatever.
Yeah.
The problem is when you make those the stakes are now are just like so much more extreme. It's like, but you can't
Exactly, because now you're doing this in sort
you
of like
can't be what Genesis said.
No.
because now you're doing this in kind of like an ultra public way, right? Like before, if I went from being a mod to a rocka, then all I have to do is throw away my parka and purchase a leather jacket and a nice big switchblade comb. But now it's like the only people who would know were my former mod group and now my rockers. Now though, depending. If you reinvent yourself, you're actually reinventing yourself from a much wider audience,
Right.
is which I see. And so there's stakes that seem higher.
Right, and you reinvent yourself, but it's not like you get to belong to the new group. You don't see
Yeah.
you become a rocker or mod. It's like you're not hanging out with other rockers
Right,
or mods.
right,
It's
right.
just a picture.
Yeah. But I mean, do you think of when you think of the future, it seems like these digital communities, obviously, but when I was younger, that people post on message boards and stuff like that, and some people did make a real lifestyle out of it. I don't want to downplay that. I did not have the time, nor patience, nor internet connection for that. But now it's like, you have this, you can change these identities by just posting a picture, right? You actually don't have to put any effort or anything
Right.
into it. And it makes the idea of identity, I think, really ephemeral and much more malleable than it previously had been. And I think that causes something in people's brains where they can't. It's this. You have infinite choices essentially, and it's this fractal noia thing where you have basically every you're trying to assemble a picture out of just a million different pieces of broken pottery.
Right, but too often those broken pieces of pottery are data.
Yeah.
The whole quantified self and how many steps have I walked today, and this data trail you leave
Absolutely,
behind.
yeah.
And that's a weird way to think about oneself too.
Metrics, just
Yeah.
like these guys, how they think of things.
Yeah. Again, you lose all that in between soft, squishy stuff where spirit and soul and love and all of us really live.
Well, I mean, what do you think is the biggest danger to the soul right now, in this present moment?
God, I mean, I think it's individualism. It's kind of what I wrote about in the last book. It's forgetting that being human is a team sport, that we're part of one collective nervous system, that all of us make it or none of us make it. There is no escape, and people are trying to jockey for position. And it's like, no, there is no, it's like the whole boat's going down and there's no lifeboats at all. We're all in this. It doesn't matter what deck you're on, so everybody's moving around in that. And it's like, dudes.
Yeah, but I mean, when these guys who's for instance, I know a fella who probably is listening to this. Well, hopefully he's not, but who worked at a technology firm. He was a mechanic there, so it was they made little robot things, and his boss was obsessed with the idea of living forever, much sort of similar to Epstein, but sort of further down the line on it. I mean, the technology, of course, is it's like cryogenics or something. It's one of those things that really rich and ostensibly smart people believe in, even though
Does not work.
Does not work physically. Impossible.
Will not work. But keep trying though.
This guy's just, his boss was obsessed with life extension technology. You know what I mean? And I didn't really interrogate what that meant because I know enough about it to know a lot of that stuff is just, totally, it's just wacko, crackpot science. I think to me, it's those people seem to want to live forever in a soulless world, right? And
Well, that's the thing. The only way to live forever is in a soulless world.
Yeah.
If you can reduce humanity and experience to data, if we are just like Ray Kurzweil would say, we are just
get up-
information evolving towards higher states of complexity.
Yeah.
That means you could take the information that is you and put it in something else and it would be just fine. As long as there's no soul, you can live forever, sure.
Yeah, but which is, I mean, it's almost like it's like a cult in a way, you know. It is really like I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like you know, even the idea of like uploading your consciousness to the metaverse, it's almost like this like ritualistic thing where it's like the QAnon people aren't too wrong about that, right?
It was really fun to look at the origins of that. Then you go back to the two-track diplomacy meetings of the United States and Russia at Esalen in the 1970s is when the Russian cosmists, have you heard of cosmism?
Oh, yeah.
Cosmists?
Yeah.
So the Russian cosmists, they were the original ones who like fucked dolphins and made robots for consciousness and all that. And they taught it to the West Coast American, like Steve Jobs kind of people. Like, oh, or Michael Murphy at Esalen. This is cool. So we took sort of American technology and Russian kind of trends. It came a little bit out of the Russian Orthodox religion is a little bit more about transubstantiation and getting out of body, and you got exactly what you're talking about. This, and then you have Timothy Leary's with Smile, which is basically ends with life extension is what they were all into. That we can, he was going to do cryogenics until like 2 weeks before he died. They came to visit and said, measure various things, and he said, I don't want to wake up to a bunch of people like them with clipboards asking me, forget it. He tore off he had the bracelet. I have his bracelet. He tore off his cryogenic bracelet.
Good
He's
Lord.
like, no, I'm going to go the Buddhist way if there is one. I'll
figure it out afterwards. Yeah. I mean, it is funny because so much of the internet, I mean, that early sort of thinking behind the internet came out of Esalen or at least
West Coast kind of culture.
Exactly.
And all.
Yeah.
Grateful Dead has headism and psychedelic culture.
Human potential. The human potential movement.
Right. Yeah. And it seemed like that. It really did, and I know where we went wrong. Where it, like I went wrong, was John Barlow, bless his heart, lyricist for the Grateful Dead, came out with this thing called the Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace. Mm-hmm. And he wrote this thing right after we on the net didn't like government. Because FBI came and did this thing called Operation Sun Devil, where they broke into the apartments and the houses of hacker kids and put them in cuffs and, broke their computers because they were so scared of kids. So that happened. Tipper Gore was doing her computer decency act and all that stuff.
Tipper, forgot about her.
So it seemed like government was the enemy of the free internet. Yeah. And John Barlow writes this thing, governments of the world beware, you are not welcome here. We're going to be fine without you. Fuck all y'all. And what we didn't realize was that you can't get rid of government without also getting rid of corporations. So he was just basically, hey, this is a free zone. And it's like, fungus and bacteria balance each other in the body. You get rid of fungus and the bacteria go nuts. And that's what happened. Corporations just came. And then only later do I go, oh, he ran, Dick Cheney's first congressional election. He's a staunch libertarian. It's like, oh, I get it. This is libertarianism. We had no idea. We thought it's just like freedom.
I mean, that seemed to be a big theme of the early internet. Is like this notion of freedom. And it's funny because as somebody who, I'm 32, came of age sort of alongside social media, all I've seen it do is just like my experience with the internet is really like watching it sort of chain down more and more people I know and lock them into this cycle. Where I think a lot of people have this nostalgia, not only for their own lives pre-internet, but really for a pre-internet age, like the atomic age, for instance. You see so much like nostalgia from even people, my age, for like, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, whatever.
Right. If I could only just have a normal 9 to 5 job.
Exactly.
I could go home.
And the atomic age, of course, atomic also referring to atomic energy and sort of this like, semi-optimistic future thing there, which that didn't pan out exactly either. But there was the threat of nuclear annihilation, the total annihilation not only of you but every single person on Earth. Yeah. And it's like now we don't even have the sort of romance of at least everybody dies. Now it's like we are the digital age, I guess they call it. Is that the name of the age?
I guess. Yeah.
I've heard it referred to as that. But where you really like you actually get to keep living. Probably, in your physical body, but your actual spirit and soul has been slowly or does get slowly annihilated. And it's sort of it's no wonder that people are sort of nostalgic for this past, or at least, you might die at any moment, but at least you belong to the Rotary Club.
So a lot of the guys you mention in the book, and a lot of the stories in the book are all kind of characters that, like our listeners will absolutely be familiar with, but really were in like Epstein's coterie. And you yourself went to some of the Edge events that he hosted, or that was he there, or was he part of it? Or
Yeah, I knew
give
so
us our
little.
listeners the skinny.
It was weird. I knew so little about it, right? It's like mid-late 90s, and I'm cyber boy, right? I'm the kid who knows about this net thing that's going to happen. So they invite me as that. Oh, he's the one who wrote, media virus and all.
Yeah.
And I go to these things, and it's weird. I'm allowed to just speak truth.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
the first Edge party I went to, the host took me aside and said, I brought the smartest woman I knew in New York, who's, I won't even say her name, smartest woman I knew in New York at the time, because I had a +1. And he takes me aside, he goes, "You wasted your +1 on a lesbian?" And it was when I realized, they invite a young kind of hip whatever. I was maybe a slightly hip 28, 32-year-old, New Yorker,
Yeah.
because I'm going to bring the hot chick and add to that grace of this
Yes.
thing. And I didn't know. I just didn't know. It's like in college. I went to Princeton, of all places. And it's like the last week I realized, I was supposed to be networking. I
should have introduced myself to some people.
Right.
Yeah.
These are all the children of like rich people. And like they're all going off to, Smith Barney or whatever. They just like, I didn't know. I was just going to school and getting stoned. I didn't know. And so sort of the same thing happened at these parties, where I was too intimidated to go walk up to like Steve Case or one of those, or Vince Cerf or one of these internet pioneers. But there was this, I was just naive. There was this other thing going on. And I just all I wanted was famous scientists to like me and to think that my work meant something.
Yeah.
But everything I said to them came off like spiritual, Buddhist, hippie nonsense when I'm talking about, people are going to reconnect with each other and at raves, we become a group organism and to have a collective nervous system. And they're just like, and they were raising money. And by selling ideas, scientists would, they knew how to pitch. You could listen to science.
Yeah.
They would pitch whatever it was they were working on, got recontextualized as a life extension technology, or this is capable of housing a human brain. My microchips will be so fast that they will, and that's what was going. People were doing business. And then what would happen is there'd be like dating going on, and then there'd be something that I wasn't invited to right after, which is like now we're going to do the special seminar on behavioral economics. And it's like Bezos is there and, Gates is there. And, some of these, scientists are there teaching really the dark art. Behavioral economics is how to abuse people's misunderstandings of finance to get them to do stuff. And then how do you apply behavioral finance to your application or your Amazon
they have done
thing?
very well.
I was going to say, they were paying
very
attention
well.
during those
And I'm
seminars.
like, but it's like, no, you don't invite the rabbi to that, right? Which basically was me, the little kind of psychedelic rabbi anarchist child.
Yeah.
So there'd be that. Or they would take they'd invite this one, that one, this one, and that one, and they would go like on the voyage of the Beagle together, like the Darwin's voyage, so, Dawkins and whoever would be on this with people like, the billionaire people, and they would have this sort of science experience, but they were, as I understood them, the events that I wasn't at were all programmed with a soullessness.
Yeah.
That was about how do we employ the latest and greatest things that we know about science and quantum to the extraction of value from people and places and the extension of our personal information clusters into the post-life space.
Yeah.
So it was this almost, to me, it had a if this is too strong a way to say it, genocidal ambiance.
Oh, I'm with you on that. No, I am 100% behind you on that. I mean, it's not to be too strong and saying things here, but you can't help but be reminded of again, a lot of the things that these apps experiment, right? Sometimes there's direct experiments on behavior, human behavior, and all things like that. But in a larger sense, a lot of this, it's new technology.
It's all experimental technology,
right?
Yeah, we've never seen it on this scale before, ever. Of course it's experimental.
And it is in a large society, worldwide scale. In essence, its core is businesses and scientists essentially experimenting on the human psyche, on the human soul, on the human interactions with each other.
With no control group.
At all. No. No control
You're
group.
right, no control. Let's talk the Amish.
Yeah, really. That's about the closest we get.
There's a dark side to the Amish.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a dark side to everything.
Yeah. No, my friend got his ass. No, it was a Mennonite that kicked his ass. But
Yeah, we can't talk about the Mennonites.
No, we have Mennonite listeners.
We do, and they got upset at us how we described Mennonites.
No.
You know what?
So
Actually,
I'm
they were very pleasant about it.
Well, tomato.
Yeah, but the Amish do accept technology. They just evaluate it.
Yeah.
They're almost Postman-esque in the way it's like, oh, what does this do? I remember Postman used to do this bit on electric windows for cars. And he's like, why do we have these? What, is it something really wrong with cranking a window? It's like, what
These are great
problem does this
questions.
solve? Right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with a lot of this is is
Can you imagine if anyone on Elon's team asked that?
well, yeah,
What problem does this solve now?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with so much of this stuff is what problem does it solve? And really, a question I grapple with a lot is does this make anybody's life better? Right? Obviously there's a lot of people with businesses on the internet, right? And a lot of people who are able to get more attention on the internet. But is as a human race, I really have to sort of stop and wonder, is anybody's life better because of this
Well, I think
stuff?
it's important then to be specific about what we're talking about.
Okay,
because
do you
you can't because it's hard when we just say technology. It's well, what do you mean? What do we mean, right?
Do I think
usually we're talking about social media,
Yes.
which is very different than just
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about technology writ large. I'm talking about this. Fine, I'll put it this way: this constant use of social media and evaluating ourselves and our peers on these apps and things like that, and even more than that, even just the ability to get anything you want at the drop of a hat. So beyond social media, I don't see that it's actually it made things more convenient, but it's hard for me to accept that it's made anyone's life
there
better.
was a moment in the late 90s when the technology flipped. And it was no longer people using technology to get something done, but businesses using technology on people.
Yes.
And once that polarity changed, it became a tool of capitalism. And so now you build technology. The problem that you solve is how do we get another 20% growth for this company next quarter? That's the only problem.
Yeah, you can't. But also, that's the thing they're all seeing, right? Look at all these companies. I mean, Netflix, that's the famous example, easy example to pick on them. But their growth is completely flat. And the kind of money that they used to have to kind of just say, okay, everyone go play, go create, just boom, content. They can't have that anymore because of their own, for a lot of reasons, just in general, the general kind of landscape of the economy, but also just because they can't hit 20-30% growth every quarter.
You can't forever. There's
Yeah.
only so many eyeball hours on the planet. You know, in the
But
end,
they'll
you need
figure out
the
a way to
human.
monetize sleep, and I'm surprised they
Right.
haven't yet.
I'm sure they're going to.
You guys don't use
Yeah.
Sleeply? You mind coin while you sleep. I'm just I made that up.
No, I'm sure that exists. I mean, I was watching. Sometimes I watch the Today Show, like to keep my pulse on middle America, middle class America.
To out you here, Liz always watches the Today
I
Show.
don't. But they did have two funny segments. One was about how to kind of like recession-proof your life by finding side hustles. And all of it pointed to apps, like one that I cannot remember the name of it, but it was like an app to rent out your backyard for people to take their pets. I swear to God.
Wait, you can let someone's pet. You can charge someone for their pet shitting in your backyard.
Yeah, or like playing.
Oh,
I guess.
okay,
It's not
like you
just
keep
like
it there.
whatever. No, I mean like
So-
you come to that person's backyard and you like walk your dog and play with them in their backyard.
Interesting.
And it's like a way to kind of like Airbnb your backyard for like hourly rates or whatever. And then
Whatever
the second,
works.
one of the big huge segment this morning was literally over the Instagram algorithm changes and their quote unquote pivot to video and trying to compete with TikTok. And, you know, they were having like a roundtable debate on whether or not Instagram should be doing this and how it was affecting people. And you're like watching, you know, I can't remember who these people are. They just all look like the same. They're all just like, they're
Beautiful.
all like some blurry version of Carson Daly to me or something, who actually I think is on the Today Show, weirdly enough.
But it is a weird arms race kind of between human beings and algorithms.
Yeah.
And it is weird when it's like, okay, what does the algorithm want from me? How can I change my business and my practices? Oh, I'm gonna make shorter videos, longer videos. I mean, even in the podcasting world, there's some of that where you look at, well, where are people dropping off and what do we
Yeah,
change
yeah,
and what do
yeah,
we do?
yeah.
You know, but when we're tuning, that's the thing.
When people give us feedback, we do the opposite.
We ignore
Well,
everything anyone says.
Good.
Yeah.
I would imagine you would do it, but
Ignore?
Yeah, or go against.
I don't
you know.
understand
You just-
what they're saying to us. Anytime anyone criticizes me, I'm like, you're yelling at me and I'm afraid of you. So I'm
Right.
gonna
I knew you enjoy it too, but it's these the in that hacker day, the good old
Yeah.
hacker days, the late 80s, early 90s, we used to have this term exploit.
Uh-huh.
And an exploit was when you found like a weakness in the machine
Yeah.
that you could then go in and get it to do cool things.
Yeah.
Now, social media companies talk about exploits in humans.
Yeah.
We found our algorithms found another exploit in 15-year-old girls. That if we show them
That's
this,
not a
they'll go do
sentence
that.
you wanna
And
hear at
that's
all.
a terrible way to use that word. But that's
yeah,
the
that
shift.
is- no,
you
I
know?
agree.
And now, but businesses and everybody, it's like, oh my God, they're going to change. Our awareness of the fact that the algorithm's changing. It's like people talking about, the prison guard at Auschwitz. Oh, he's taking his break at a different
This
moment.
is exactly how I think about it. Yeah, it's like, oh man, like they started serving sausages to the guards. I
I
think
know,
he's
it's
gonna be
completely
like,
surreal to watch these, like, I mean, lit TV presenters. I mean, these are, whatever, talking about this thing. I mean, it was just like mind blowing to me. And I'm like, we're having a national conversation about the algorithm, capital A. It's like so bizarre,
Yeah. And we're not allowed to tune them. Zook is allowed to tune the algorithm. Zook
Yeah.
says we're going to
But
change
they
the
don't even know
algorithm.
what's in these things. I mean,
Right, yeah.
that
tune
term
themselves.
is also so loaded, right? It's become this kind of symbol of something, this kind of like governing rationale of these platforms. I mean, there is literally, if or there isn't like just one string of code that governs these things, fine. If anyone even knows what's in one of these things, which they don't, because they've just been like adding and adding and adding and adding, in the case of Google for, 25, 30 years to this thing that they don't know what's in it. That's why searching fucking sucks ass now. But like, it's taken on this like mythical quality.
Well, when you
where
just-
it's like now we kind of like defer, like we now have raised it up to this deity thing, even if it doesn't exist. It's like, this is just like shit that no one even understands, that they're using to kind of like, they're tacking on stuff as they go, making it up as they go along, as, finding these new exploits, add here, add there, never subtracting, just adding on. But we are elevating it to this thing, this mythical thing, this algorithm. Like we say, how does TikTok know? How do they know? It's so good. The algorithm always, it's like we're imbuing it with this power at the same time.
Yeah. They're the closest thing, if you want to use an occult frame, they're
Absolutely.
the closest thing to demons.
Yes.
You know, we're going to take this, we're going to train this thing to extract value from human beings, to learn how to do it better, and to share its results with all the other ones. And we're going to launch it up there and then not know how it even works. You know,
Yeah.
And that's
And they're
pure
gonna
sigil demonology.
be completely and totally like intertwined, like demand it from the like they're gonna be so enmeshed in this thing that they want more and more and more. Like that's like something that we kind of were talking about the other day. It's like a lot of times when you see the way that people are kind of trying to push back on some of these platforms, it's ironically, kind of paradoxically, to maximize more of the like platform.
Like I want to spend.
Power.
It's like yeah. It's like oh, they're being so unfair by banning me. It's like brother, every ban from a platform is a little sweet gift from God for you.
It's a blessing in
It
disguise.
is a blessing.
Or
Right.
just like you need to make it so that like actually, we extend how much people are seeing these things or things that, you know what I mean? It's like it's interesting.
It's
way
funny though,
people are kinda going about
the tech bros in
criticism.
the book, some of the richest ones, the only thing they're scared of is AI.
Yes,
They really
That's something
are.
I want to touch on.
Because these guys have been, well, first, they spent their whole lives going meta on everything, and AIs are the one thing that can go meta on them.
Yeah.
But I was at one of these, friends of one of the tech guys' conferences, and this guy was telling me, be really careful what you post about AI on your social media and in your Medium column. I think you're getting a little, it's like, why? He goes, well, when they take over... they're gonna see what you wrote.
Man. Is the AI in the room with you now?
Yeah, and I'm
Well,
like,
but
and
how
I'm
do you
like,
take
so
that
you're that
seriously?
scared? Yeah, and I'm like, dude, if the AIs are that smart, they're gonna know you're just holding back how you feel.
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
stuff that
yeah,
you're
yeah,
posting.
yeah,
And he's
yeah.
like, oh fuck. Oh.
Well, I mean that does bring us to AI. It's like that is sort of the one thing that you hear like Musk talks about it, or I feel like he used to more. But talk about like we need to prevent AI from taking over, all these kind of
If
things.
all he's got is his dancing, vaporware, I think we're okay.
Exactly. Well, my whole thing is any kind of robot of any kind, autonomous or not, that is my mortal enemy, and I mean that like gun wise. But with AI,
I said it on the record.
yeah,
They're
I
coming.
will.
They
I
know.
will.
They heard.
I can defeat you. I've spent 20 years taking pot shots at every stray dog I've seen around
Yeah.
in order to fight those robot
Special
dogs.
He's
anti-robotic.
destroyed thousands of Roombas.
With your
Yes.
Krav Maga.
Exactly.
Krav Maga robot guy.
Yeah. But I mean, but how seriously do you take AI as even as a future or as a threat?
I take AI seriously, not in that AI will be this thinking strong
Yeah.
thing.
like from the sci-fi books.
Right, but that the damage that really simple, stupid AIs can do to people is pretty incredible.
What kind of damage can they do?
Well, it's as simple as the kid who's addicted to Instagram and cutting herself and vomiting, and because an algorithm was clever enough to addict her to its to its stream. It's not that hard. So no, I'm not thinking that the AI, is going to then just control civilization.
Yeah.
And all. It's just if we are telling really simple AIs, do whatever is necessary to extract attention and money out of people and share your results
Yeah.
with each other, you're going to get and those things evolve faster than we do. I mean, there's
Right.
this one guy, Nir Eyal. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
him.
I
He
know
wrote
who he
this
is.
awful book called Hooked, which is about, basically he took BJ Fogg's ideas from Stanford and put them in an easy, how do you addict people to
Yeah.
your technology? And 2 or 3 years later, he writes this other book after The Social Dilemma comes out. Basically, I forgot what it's called, but like Unhooked. How to fight against the companies
Yeah.
that are trying to hook you to their social media. And it's like, this is an arms dealer. You know?
Yeah.
Going to both sides.
Merchant of
So
death.
it's the weaponization of AI that's really the problem. It's not here to figure out what I want. It's here to help figure out how to get from me what they want.
Well, I think there's also this vision, right? You see it from, we have a particular image of what this is going to look like as the kind of like sci-fi fear of like a robot that looks just like Brace then becoming Brace.
Right.
I
You know
will
what I
say,
mean?
like the example earlier, you see a robot that looks like me, or if you even suspect I'm a robot, dispatch me immediately using Krav Maga.
Right. Well, it's interesting though, philosophically, one of the only things we have over robots would be the faith that there's something more.
Yeah.
And that's where even Neil Postman went back to this. Like the one weapon we have against technology or the technopoly is religion, is spirit,
Yeah.
is soul. And that's what the scientists can't grok.
Yeah.
That there's got to be there's something else. There's awe. There's human experience.
Well, where do you think that like drive for pure scientism comes from? Like, I feel like I just do not. I do not understand people like this. Like, I feel bad, but I have like a really hard time
Yeah.
like connecting and like getting in their shoes a little bit,
I'm
of like
guessing
understanding.
They were disillusioned as children by somebody who didn't respect the evidence. And then I think they become evidentiary.
But I see it more and more and more and more in young people too, right? And it's, as more and more jobs like transition into like STEM, disciplines, like, I don't know. It's just, it seems like you see more and more and more and more of that worldview than anything else. And
Yeah.
not just from tech billionaires, not from Peter Thiel, not from these guys, but like literally
Yeah.
from the people that we used to be neighbors with in San Francisco.
Started in the 60s and 70s when
Yeah.
Russia launched Sputnik. America went crazy. And
Yeah,
we thought
they
that
did.
Russia was going to put a sickle on the moon. That's when we started to teach calculus in high school. And we changed the whole curriculum. We reduced the humanities and liberal arts. Who really cares if they know philosophy and how to read? And we did science and math and engineering. And then that dovetailed so well with corporatism and efficiency and the growth of markets. And now with the computer age, with STEM, there's little steam on top of it, which is like use Adobe Photoshop or something. Put the art in there. But it's just a nod to, it's to not be whatever, accused of white supremacy or something.
Yeah.
So put an A in there. It's good. It's all good. But it's not. It's not. And now even people in my fields, like in media studies, which we both agree is recognizing that Botox kills communication between people.
Sure, but it can be helpful for some.
Yeah, but media, it can be. Oh, no, it's fine. But understanding it, that almost spiritual literary analysis McLuhan-esque thing is now media studies wants to be a social science. Everyone wants to be, or you do
The social science.
digital humanities.
need
Right?
to-
So it's not humanities. It's like, let's use a computer to count the number of thous in Hamlet versus the number of thous in Macbeth in order to judge something. It's like, wait a minute, that's not how to read Shakespeare, I promise. But that's the only way to like get the grant. We proved. Everyone wants proof that it's there. We found it. And the intangibles are what make this dimension worth inhabiting. That weird space, that squishy stuff that they've been scared of since Francis Bacon and empirical science, which he said, the great quote is, empirical science will let us take nature by the forelock, hold her down, and submit her to our will. If that's what science is for, they've done a pretty good job.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about how the sort of the demonic algorithm, and I think that there really is something there, because I for me at least, and not to get too woo woo or whatever, but like it does feel demonic, especially if you spend a long time sucked into one of these things, right? Like you're touching something that's evil in a encompassing way.
Yeah.
And you talk about team human, and in this, like, it is almost like a and again, not to be too woo woo, but it's
You
like
love to be a little woo woo.
I love to be a
It's
little
good.
woo woo, but
We're all
I
hippies.
I'm not very, I
a
went to
little woo-woo brace.
I only went to City College for like 3 months, so forgive me. But it does seem like literally a battle between, or a struggle rather, between like God and the devil in a way, right? Because like, if God lives in everybody, or, however you want to put it, right? It's sucking the soul out, the thing that has that connection to God, and again, I'm being kind of metaphorical here, but sucking that out and suppressing that and replacing it with this like algorithmic lifestyle, let's say, or this algorithm-based lifestyle, does seem to me to be like a victory of the occult.
Yeah. And that is, that's the beauty of what you do here. If we can end with that, that is true. The true Anon is that the QAnon literalizes it as, in that injection, Bill Gates has put a nanoprobe that's going to suck my soul out. And it's like, you're almost right. Except you don't need the injection. He's sucking your soul out anyway now. It's just the phone you're walking around with is tracking you. They don't need the nanobots in your blood. So they're like so close. But that's why I have such empathy for the conspiracy theorists, because they get it. They just don't. They're just using a metaphor to understand what's happening to them. But it is happening to them.
Well, with him proving that QAnon is in fact true.
Well, that TrueAnon is a mission from God.
I'll put that. Thank you, Douglas, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And
you
by
have
the
to come
time-
back on.
Thank you for what you do. You sustain me and many others. You really do. You sustain us through these strange times.
And it's incredible of you to just be like, you guys can have the royalties for that too. That was super for the book. That was just
yeah. Let's see them. I've never seen a freaking check, but
and also that's really experimental for you to have a baby do the audiobook, which is an idea that I got earlier, that they should have babies do. Like, how audiobooks are very popular now.
babies
pre-verbal.
can't-
Yeah, I had a pre-verbal baby.
Maybe not pre-verbal, but like beginning of verbal or very beginning of a guide
Brace,
to
what would it
learning to
sound
read.
like?
In the beginning, there was.
When was the last time you saw a baby who
Talk?
just learned how to talk?
I hang out with babies all the time, dude. I buy CBD from them. Douglas, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hey, my little kitty cat pussy, you wanted to rock with the pompadour set. Now you can have it. My name is Psycho Billy.
Oh my God.
Sweet young thing. Sweet young thing. I can't get it out.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either. Let's
I don't
stop
like
that. Let's
it.
put him in a box.
I think you just have to be you, which is already psychobilly enough.
I'm becoming a skinhead.
That's a bad idea. But I'm Liz.
My name is Brace, or no, I gotta put him down. I'm not like this anymore. Oh man, they should desegregate this bar. No, I'm not like it. And joining us is anti-racist Elvis. Who is, of course, controlled in his career, in his personal life, in his sexual life, and in his spiritual life by our producer, Young Chomsky, a.k.a.
The Colonel.
Remember,
That was a bit, right?
So this was something, a little peek behind the curtain here. Remember when we thought about doing the Colonel as a guy?
That was just like no. First of all, let's clear the record here. You thought about doing the Colonel as a guy, and I was like, I don't think that's a bit that works.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, it'll just be this guy who's always in the room that we say is the Colonel.
My thinking behind this was that if like every 6 or 7 episodes or so, we make a like quick and very like kind of just like a brief reference to a figure named the Colonel who has some really amorphous or just like unexplained connection to the podcast, but an important one. If we just drop that in every so often, that it would. Actually, I don't really know my thinking behind that.
Yeah, I don't either. Although it would expand the universe a little bit.
Yeah, it would build upon the lore.
Oh my God, no, that's too dorky. We can't do that.
Okay.
No world building here.
Wow. Cool. Marcos is going to be super excited to hear about that.
Well, but Marcos is
Marcos
real.
is real, yeah. And Marcos right now, by the way, you need to get the fuck out of Cyprus immediately.
And you know what? We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein.